right, welcome into episode 42 of Coffee and Chel. As we talk about NHL 23, it's our first episode of our new fully formed unit of myself, Kesso, and Padre down below. And we'll get a quick introduction of my man Padre if you haven't, if you don't know who he is. But before we do that, most importantly, Kesso, you just had your baby girl. Give us a rundown on what it's like being a father for the last 10 days.
It's been a lot of diaper changes.
Excellent.
And,
Nothing
her
new.
she's pooping and eating. That's pretty much it. It's been amazing. She's awesome. I love her to death, obviously. What else can you say, right?
How's the pets?
The dog is so protective of her.
That's
already.
Cute.
Like, dude, it's amazing. It's like instantly just like that. She's following her. Like if we're holding her and walking, she's following her. She's sniffing her. We had to teach her, don't lick the face. You can only lick the feet.
Yeah.
And I think Henry has no idea so far.
Well,
like his life hasn't changed whatsoever. But the dog's has. But it's been great. My wife's amazing, so I'm really lucky to be going through this with her. So it's been fun. I'm excited for this forever journey, I guess, right?
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm glad that everything's going well. As we venture into, I guess this is the beginning of season 2 of Coffee and Chel.
Season 2, yeah.
Technically, I think we can consider this season 2. We bring in someone new. And for anyone who doesn't know, man in the bottom right, the former emergency backup goaltender for the St. Louis Blues, and Chel aficionado, my man Padre. How you doing, buddy? It's late, a little bit late for us.
I'm doing good. This is where the night starts for me right here. Kessel's gonna find this out real quick. With having a kid, you kind of put yourself last, and if you want to play the biggies, you're gonna have to play them late at night. And this is me time. This is me time because after you have a kid, you really have to, you put them, obviously they're first all day long till they go to sleep, and then you're like, well, now it's time for myself. I got to get away from everything.
Excellent. Well, all right, happy to have you, and you are going to be a big part of our second weekly podcast. For anyone that didn't catch the last one while Kesso was away, we did our first NHL coverage of the real thing, not the video game, that we are going to have every single week. So there will be 2 episodes of Coffee and Chel every single week, one pertaining to the video game, one pertaining to the real thing. And throughout the rest of the month, we're going to talk about NHL 23. And then on the hockey podcast, we are going to talk about some previews. And we've got some pretty crazy guests lined up. I don't want to get the wagon in front of the horse or whatever that saying goes, but I'm actually pretty stoked, and you guys are going to be pretty blown away at the access and the athletic celebrities that we'll have on the show here. So, all right, let's get into it. All right, left hand side, we've got a little bit of a rundown for you, sort of, but here we go. Let's talk about NHL 23 came out. We haven't talked about it on the podcast. So let's get our initial thoughts of it. All right, Kesso, you have been away. You have been lurking in the bushes, in the shadows, seeing all this unfold on social media. How do you feel compared to other years about the hype of NHL 23?
I'm seeing it's like a mixture, right? It's always like a mixed bag. There's some people that are excited about crossplay being in it. And then there's a lot of people that are like, this is what you call crossplay.
Yeah.
So I really don't know what to expect at all whenever it comes to the reaction, whenever the game comes out. I think it could be good, it could be bad, obviously. And then we also don't even know if it's going to work, right? So there's so much uncertainty in the community, and I think it's warranted.
I think absolutely, man. I think that this year it feels extremely empty. I don't know, like I've said this a lot over the last couple weeks that I really feel like NHL 23 is going to be 24's beta, but I think that's been like the meme. But like this really feels like the foundation of like some of the biggest changes we're going to see in the game's franchise, specifically with crossplay, because once next gen or old gen is removed from the equation, which I would have to guess is next year, you then go into where it's back to Xbox and PlayStation, one console each, but now we can play together. So we have a full player base, which allows us the opportunity to have a player base that's big enough to introduce multiple different types of modes in Hockey Ultimate Team. Even in World of Chel, you'll be able to find games in February. But, Padre, let me know what you've seen so far on social media and just your own general sense. You've been playing the game competitively for like 15, 20 years. So what do you get a sense of in this year compared to other years?
Honestly, so far, I agree with both of you. I think this will be a lot like NHL 15, where you heard a lot how, this is a base model for the future next gen games. Obviously, we don't really have new consoles, but they're semi-new, I guess, because of what happened with COVID. But I don't know. It definitely feels like it's a base for the future games, and I'm hoping, like Kesso said, crossplay. They get the kinks out this year, and then by next year we're like off and running. We get rid of the old gen consoles. You know what I mean? And we move on for just a game standpoint, having one market like MLB has. And it just makes everything flow just a lot better. Comp play, regular, casuals, you name it. It'll just make it a lot better.
I agree. Let's get into it. Crossplay. So they announced crossplay, and everyone assumes that it's just like what cross console is in every other game, and that's where everything is just mixed. Well, that is not the case. It is essentially cross matchmaking. And it's not cross-gen, which I'm actually happy about, because, again, I think next year it won't matter. So if they would have wasted resources trying to get cross-gen into the game, I think it would have been kind of pointless. That's under the assumption that next year we won't have PlayStation 4 and Xbox One games. But that being said, basically, let's talk about HUT specifically, as we are a HUT podcast. Matchmaking, so Rivals, HUT Champs will be where you can play the other consoles. So if you're on PS5, you can play Xbox Series X. However, leaderboards are going to remain, which is very, I think, complicated and convoluted in the sense that if you play HUT Champs and you can match up against anyone in Series X if you're on PS5. And I think that's good I think that competitively, winning in HUT Champs is going to be Twitter bio worthy, finally. Because if you can get top 10 in HUT Champs when you're going up against the biggies on Xbox and PlayStation 5, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for allowing the kids to actually have it in their Twitter bio. But the issue is that you're only going to be ranked against how the same console you're on did as a whole. So you could have played the 10 best players on Xbox Series X on PS5, but you're only ranked against other people that play on PS5, which is obviously a little bit of an issue, and especially if you can turn off crossplay. Like, I don't know if that's a thing, because I know in MLB you can turn it off, but
you can do it in MLB,
yeah,
right?
like
So
if you can turn off,
you can turn it off in this. You know what I mean? Because I have a feeling it's going to be an absolute mess at first. So I hope you don't have to.
And you can't even play a friend. So I think in World of Chel, this impacts it more than anything. So you can play a full team of Xbox Series X against PS5, which is cool. You can match up against them, but you can do a pin match. So that's good. But you can't play PS5 and Xbox on the same team, which I think everyone was like, what? Like I think World of Chel was where it was kind of, really hit hardest, because I think everyone, when they assumed it would come into the game, that would be something they'd be able to do. You can't play with your buddies on the same console, so you can match up against them with the full team, but that's it. And then play a friend on 1v1. We'll see how that impacts the GWC, but you're not able to invite someone from another console yet. So, Kessel, we'll start with you. Give me your thoughts on this and how you feel about it, and if it was worth basically all of the resources going in this year.
Yeah, so I think it's worth all of the resources going in, just because I know that we'll have a better game next year or the year after, right? We know that they couldn't have moved forward as a sports game without doing this. It's unfortunate that a year of the game has...
For sure.
Yeah, NHL specifically. Yeah, like it's unfortunate that we lose a year of progress in modes, right? Mm-hmm. It scratches like 30% of my needs, maybe 20% for crossplay.
Yep.
Because we don't have the shared leaderboards.
Nope.
Did they say anything about the market? That's not shared.
It is confirmed 4 markets.
Confirmed 4 markets, so that's another negative. And then not being able to invite somebody in HUT, right? I think that's been confirmed.
Yep.
Right? Yep. So knowing all those, the only thing we have is the matchmaking. That only helps the top 5% whenever you're 15
it really
and 0.
does. It really does, yeah.
So HUT, you're not really seeing a benefit. It's going to help next year, the year after, great. So I'm glad that it's in the game, but 95% of the people aren't going to really see a benefit of it.
And Padre, what about you? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so Sleazy, I don't know if you'll remember this, but this reminds me of the old days back in NHL 09 when everyone was always wondering who the best PlayStation team is and who's the best Xbox team, and now we can finally
that is true.
settle it. Because that was the big thing back then when we had an NHL 09, the regulators on PlayStation, and it was the Purple Cobras on Xbox, and they finally got to play each other in Vancouver. But nowadays, I feel like all the comp guys in sixes anyways, they all play on Xbox. You know what I mean?
Like the most part. Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to see because even with how NHL esports went specifically this last 2 years with COVID, almost every top end Sixes team has both consoles or played on both. Like very few. Like I remember, I'm trying to. I think Instinct was a team that was only PlayStation, I believe. Maybe I have that wrong. I know there was one PlayStation team, but they ended up playing on Xbox too. But I do kind of miss that. I kind of think like LG and Sports Gamer, the Sixes communities there, phenomenal. Like what they have is unbelievable. But like it kind of takes away from like the matchmaking in game. Like it kind of like. Day. You know what I mean? Because the leaderboard just means so little.
That's kind of what killed it, right?
Yeah.
Like back in the day, we had the leaderboards, and then the leagues, like League Gaming and like the other one, they took everything from that, right?
Yep.
Because if you don't have LG, like LG's like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, it's a full-time job.
Yep.
And then people have the ESHL or whatever it's called, or like the Columbus Blue Jackets tournament.
Yep.
And it's like there's nobody good that's like searching a random game.
Exactly.
So that ruined it for me, like just being able to jump in and play with friends.
And then you mentioned something, Kesso, I think that I think a lot of people on Hockey Ultimate Team, they wanted crossplay because they couldn't find a match. And you touched on it. That only really impacts the top 5%. Like if you had over 2,200 Rivals points this year, which is the top 1%, and it's probably a good portion of the people that listen to our podcast and that are in the community, just because they're more invested usually, like, if you can get to Division 1 in HUT, you're in the 1% of the entire player base. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And then above that, you couldn't find games. Like, if you were Gren with or Polks, let's use Polks as an example here because he didn't get off the game this year. Polks had 6,000 CR. Like, I don't think he lost a Rivals game. If he wanted to search, it would take him 45 minutes. And I feel for that because he's just getting like, you know, hurt, or like he's getting, you know, a crappy system because he's too good, right? And I think it's really going to help those high-end Division 1 guys because there'll be more of them on both consoles. But when you get down to the lower, there was just more of an amount of a player base that were in those lower divisions. Now, I am curious to see how it will be for the lower division guys because they're not going to play the same people, and there's going to be a lot more depth overall. So I'm curious to see how they do. I'm wondering if people will jump up divisions more or if they'll kind of remain where they've been. But yeah, for Hockey Ultimate Team specifically, the market, we talked about this, I think the market would definitely impact the mode more than cross-console. But from my understanding, the market going into the game in terms of cross-console is an extremely easy add once they can test it and cross-play works. So I'll go on a limb here and say that cross-market will be in NHL 24. I don't know. I doubt it would be in 23, but no matter what, that's kind of what we were talking about, how like 24 has the potential to be the best game that we've ever gotten, and that's just kind of one of the examples of it. But it definitely hurts, and for the Game World Championship, I got to be involved in it pretty heavily. You guys were both competitors in it, and I think for the last 5 years, you guys have been competitors in it, and it'll be interesting to see again because they had to go 4 consoles last year. And how they're going to handle it again this year if they can't do play a friend, right? Like, there might be ways to get around it. And if it's in-game, like open play, let's say they do open play like they did last year, they can't separate, the leaderboards are separate. So you can match up against Xbox players and PS5 players, right? But, like, your PlayStation 5 is going to be the top whatever if it works the same. So that'll be really interesting to see how that shakes out. But it is something that needs to be in the game. And I think when we look back on 23, if you look back at NHL 15... I don't think there was anything groundbreaking added into the game. They struggled to get it onto next gen. It was Hockey Ultimate Team. They couldn't put World of Chel and port it over, but there wasn't really anything groundbreaking added into the game. Crossplay, when we look back, when all of this shakes up in 24 and maybe even 25, I think we're going to be like, man, that was necessary over all the other things. So, but obviously not the highest of vibes. But let's move on to the gameplay trailer, guys. So we did get 2 trailers, a reveal trailer, which I thought was much worse than last year. I thought last year's like super cinematic one with all the X Factors was actually sick. But nonetheless, move on to the gameplay trailer. And we got our first chance to look at last chance puck movement. Now, Kesso, me and Kesso have been playing around with this a little bit. Obviously, in the alpha build we have... And in the beta a little bit. I apologize. I don't know if you've played the beta at all, but give me your thoughts. I played 1 period. Yeah, give me your thoughts.
You made it 1 more than I did.
Give me your thoughts on last chance puck movement and if you think it'll be impactful in the game for 23.
I'm worried about how impactful it'll be. I just have a bad feeling somebody's gonna stumble and then snipe it top shelf, and everyone's gonna be uploading it to Twitter and freaking out. But I mean, it's part of hockey. It is.
Yeah.
I want to now. I played hockey my entire life, and I've watched a million hockey games. I just like wonder how often this actually happens in a game. You know what I mean? Like I never think about it, but now I want to go watch a game
That's true.
and see and be like, how many times is the guy falling over and knocking the puck You know what I mean? It's just, you don't see, I don't know. I wonder if you see it that often.
That's a good point. Like, this is definitely something that's more in the video game, because the stumble animations, they showed a great part in the trailer of NHL 22. And for anyone that did not understand why big players were so much more impactful, and I think a lot of the casual player base that watches my content, when I'm like, okay, you want the fastest guys and the biggest guys, and they're like, well, why aren't smaller guys just as useful? Like, why are the big guys the most important? Because once speed is the same, and you get into these situations where you can just hammer up on the right stick and bump guys, they showed in the trailer what would happen. You would get stun locked, and your player would go, whoa, and he would be locked from picking up the puck. Now, with the last chance puck movement, we'll get an ability to keep the pass going or a shot going. But man, I played 10 games of the beta. I struggled through World of Chel for 10 games. And I noticed it one time. That was it. It was not common. And if that's the big addition to the game, and on top of that, man, I think this might impact the meta in 1v1. It's hard because it's World of Chel, right? It's hard. You got to take it with a grain of salt. But when it comes to 1v1, I'm curious if guys just won't bump as much. And we'll just get guys collapsing, because we're going to talk about defense and how much more difficult it is now with the pocheck system. But last chance puck movement, if you hammer up on the right stick and you can cause that stumble animation, but they can still basically operate as they were, maybe we see it less and defense really changes in terms of and how your opponent plays. But Kessel, give me your thoughts on that. Do you think that this will impact gameplay, or is this just something that is just not really going to be impactful at all, kind of like the Michigan?
Yeah, I have to see it more, right? Like we in that build we have, it's not like we're playing against people. At least I don't think you are, I don't think I am. I have to see how it plays in HUT. I think this would have been a great addition a few years ago. I think it's a great addition now. Bumping was more prevalent back in like NHL 18, 19, especially on Xbox. Whenever Padre, you remember how that system played, right?
First year HUT GWC, I think, where it was like two different games.
Exactly. Yeah, it was two different games. So I think it's a good addition, just if it makes smaller players more viable and being able to get the passes off. Just because it's annoying whenever you get that like locking animation to where you can't do anything. I do have to go and I feel like watch real hockey now just to see how it happens, because I'm like, because they're so exaggerated, the movements.
Wait, when you said that, like, I'm just trying to like think, and I can't, like, the only thing that comes to mind, and I saw it in the trailer, which was good, they highlighted it, because I think a lot of people are hung up on this is going to activate when you get bumped, but I'm curious to see how many people take advantage of it when you're just near the puck. You don't have to puck chop anymore. The puck chop animation is good and useful, but you have to be in a certain range. Now, if you can lunge for it, essentially, on
like
the penalty kill,
right?
Like the penalty kill, like when you're trying to get there, like I could see that, because I can picture a million like 5-on-3s where the guys are just like flying out. You know what I mean?
But I wonder how many times there's going to be accidental ones where you shoot it out of your own zone, because that's happened to me in the build that we had. So I've seen it to where like I had the puck at the blue line, and I go just to get the loose puck, and maybe like I accidentally double tap the right stick if I'm going to like shoot it back in, and my guy just hits it out of the zone. So I'm just really, that's frustrating with the beta, because it's only World of Chel. They really needed 1v1 in it just to see how some of these things played.
We'll talk about the beta in a little bit, but that is it's becoming I understand the closed technical test is to basically just test the technical parts of the servers, make sure the game fires on, but it's been a little rough. Strategies. Go ahead.
Hold on. One thing. Yeah. You know what I'm worried about?
Yeah.
I'm worried about playing guys like HK, Kesso, that just straight line up the ice, or guys in 1v1, anybody that does it, just straight lines. And I'm worried that you're going to come in and hit them, and they're just going to go right through and stumble through. And you know what I mean? Like those goals that you would play it perfectly defensively, but now with the stumbling thing,
people don't know until really having a hard time defensively in the closed technical test, and just like the vibe on Twitter and Reddit and whatnot. Like it just seemed like the game, like it is going to be a month-long adjustment period, I think, to 20 to much like 22 was, because 2021 was the forced pass meta where you just fire the puck through the middle, and because there was no intercept model on, A lot of people had struggled with that, and I probably did because this 22 was the worst game in terms of like performance that I had. So that might have been in it, but you're definitely going to see some struggles come the first month of the game 1v1. So let's talk about the new strategies, the strategies of NHL 23. Finally, since the first time since NHL 04, we've got something new. However, much like the rest of 23, it's the start, not totality. So we've got one new power play strategy and one new penalty kill strategy and some other features where you can mess around with it. Padre, have you seen these, like the power play one, and do you think that you'll use a lot? You're someone who really pays attention to like, where your guys go and everything like that, so I'm curious to your thoughts on that.
I think that's how me and Kessa became such good buddies, honestly, over the years.
You guys are very similar in that aspect.
Face-off plays, because I'm a hockey nerd with stuff, so I've always wanted to be as realistic as possible, which I understand it's a video game at the end of the day. But with the face-off plays, me and Kessa, we were using Paul Gaustad back in the day with the Predators on our first line and Versus. And it was all because of like those face-off plays. I'm pumped about the face-off strategies or the plays. And the power play, I mean, every team in the NHL almost runs the same kind of power play. You know what I mean? They have the guys on the flanks, aka the Ovechkin or the Stamkos spot or the Kucherov spot on the other side. So it's like, I was always wondering, why is this not in the video game? Why is it not more prevalent in the video game? And finally, we hopefully, knock on wood, the only thing I'm worried about is you toss it over to Ovechkin and his body's turned the other way and he can't take a one-timer and he fans on it. That's what I'm a little bit worried about. But I'm excited about the power plays and stuff like that.
I'm excited that they are actually putting new strategies in. Kessler, talk a little bit. Did you get a chance to look at the stuff that you can mess around with, though? Like the trigger man and the distributor and all of that?
So
I'm more excited for that.
I am excited for that. Some of it was not working completely, I think, in
we
mine.
Didn't have it work in our build.
Yeah, just because it was super early, right? Mm-hmm. So you're able to designate, like, I want this guy as the finisher, right? And you can put him in that left, like, Ovechkin spot. And he will always go there regardless of if he's, like, a right wing, left wing, right? So that's perfect. It's just not it's not enough.
It's not enough,
like,
man.
I've been waiting. Dude, if this was announced and it was, like, you would think, like, I'd be outside, like, banging a drum or something because there's new strategies in the game. But it's a power play one and it's a special teams one. What is that? 10% of the game max.
Yep. And it's the counter to like what the new power play strategy was. The penalty kill one is literally the counter to it to like put your guys in the right spot. So it's like
so
it's kind of like everyone's gonna use those.
But it's like you said, it's a good thing to have. Hopefully moving forward. Now, if we get to 24 and there's not expanded like options for even strength, then this was just a waste if we're waiting more.
So let's pretend they don't add more strategies. If they add the ability to, on every line, designate who you want to take, like you're the one that you're trying to feed the puck to, man, like that is something, because you could literally go into your hut team and be like, on every line, you could have one guy that has like plus 90 shooting. And this is the one that you really want. And he could be slow, because you don't need to carry the puck with him. He's not the distributor. He's not he's not like the point guard, essentially. Like, he's not bringing the puck up. So I think that would be really, really cool. And that
would be great. Yeah.
If they can do that.
For big tipper, right? Like,
that's what I was thinking. If you could put a guy in the middle.
I don't want Pavelski over there on the boards, right? Like, no matter what, don't do anything. Go in front of the net. Like, I'm running crash the net. You're always the one that's right in front of the net.
We tested that last year, Kessa. Remember that with Pavelski? We were just firing turds at him all game long.
It just didn't work.
Dude,
it never worked.
I said that in my reaction video. I'm like, man, if they made it where you can tell a guy to sit right in the middle, like, that makes Big Tipper and Total Eclipse like somewhat viable, maybe. Because the problem with Big Tipper is that if you run behind the net, because that's really kind of what you've still got to use. Overload and Crash Net have their times and spots, but behind the net is really the most effective with the plays that are available to you. There's never a guy in the middle. There's a guy behind the net or the side or the other side. There's never one in the middle. So if you have Big Tipper, I remember at the beginning of last year, we're like, man, this might be like the meta, right? And it just literally you could never get it to work, which I'm all for trying to make more X Factors a little bit more viable. And that might be one way to do it. Speaking of X Factors, we got two new ones. All right, we got Relentless, which is Sarah Nurse's new X Factor, which is basically, advanced power and accuracy on stumble animation shots, and then we've got Trigger Zegris's where it makes all across moves a lot easier. So, Kessel, we'll start with you. What do you think of those new X factors, and do you think they're going to be?
So I'm
What
going to
tier
go
are they
back
going to
to
be in?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Padre's example, right? He was saying HK is going to, skate down the middle. He's going to stumble, and then he's going to get a shot off or something, right? So somebody's going to run that Sarah Nurse one in just straight line, and then no matter what, if they get knocked off the puck, are they going to have a good shot? Like, I'm really interested to see how viable that is. I think that one, I'm assuming it's going to be one of the ones that you don't use. Like, it's going to cost like 2 or 4 points in Hut. I don't see it being that useful, but maybe there will be a use for it. The Zegris one, it has to cost 2 points, right? Just because it's like that all alone, like that breakaway one. I'm excited for that one. I think it's a cool ad just because like I think one of the only people that were doing the Michigan goals last year.
And tell people how many times you scored it in game and how many attempts you had, because you are one of the only people that can actually do it.
Yeah, I scored it 20 to 30 times in 22, right? And I've probably tried it like 2,000 times.
That is not a lot of that. That percentage is not high.
It's terrible. That's like 1%.
I will say this though, like that kind of makes sense if you consider how often it actually happens in real life. But just to temper expectations on the ability, right? Like,
Yeah, maybe that goes up to 5% if you have that active, or 10%. Like, I know if Zegris is one of the players that I can choose in the X Factor pack, like that pre-order bonus, like I'm probably going to do that just for fun.
There you go.
Because scoring one of those Zegris flips will be pretty cool.
Padre, you were big on making sure you messed around with all of the X Factors and the ones that you wanted to min-max. Do you think that these two are going to be anything that you would consider using?
Probably not. The Relentless one, I'll be curious to see how it is as like a silver ability. Because I could see a guy like Crosby or Marchand, who are notorious like hounds on the puck, and like a superstar having that ability, like McKinnon, like whatever, those would be interesting to see just because that's a nice little trait to have. But I don't know like how much you would allocate to those type of things. Like Kessa was saying, if it's like 2 or 4 points, I mean, it just depends, I guess, like how OP the ones that we were all using at the last year, like the D-to-D ones and I don't remember.
We really figured it out by the end. Like Truculence, Gold 1T for defensemen.
Post to post.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
I think it all comes back to how many times that the stumble animations actually happen. Like,
right.
I think a lot of people forget that the world of Chel, the builds you're using are like 78 overall players. So you're body checking on a majority. If you're using a sniper, you're not bumping anyone off the puck because your body checking so low. Now in Hut, everyone starts with 85. Even Kessa, we went through our build. Everyone starts with 85 body checking, right? So I think it might be an ability. You mentioned it, Padre, about how as a silver ability for Relentless specifically. I think it might be something like Truculence was for smaller defensemen, where it made smaller defensemen useful because they just could not bump anyone off the puck, unlike 21, where they were actually, able to do it. But I think that if they're the ones that are, because the big guys don't get bumped. Like, they don't get knocked. That's the benefit of them. They don't get that stumble animation. So those big guys that everyone uses, they don't need to waste the points on that. They could use it on something else. But if a smaller player has it, it could make smaller players much more useful. And I'm all for that because I would love it if it wasn't just whoever's biggest and fastest. Like, I would. And I think that maybe this might help.
What, you mean you can use Patrick Kane or Johnny Gaudreau, some of the best players in the NHL, and actually be able to play with them? Yeah, that'd be kind of crazy.
And you know what? It's funny. Maybe I actually kind of want to get in this a little bit with you guys because this is a good sidebar here. Just talking about like what the meta is and the experiences that people have of the game that maybe don't understand that. So I think once you get to Division 2 or Division 1, that is where playing with the cards that you want to play with really hinder you. So I'll use, like you said, Kane and Gaudreau. Let's say those as an example. Like if you love those players and you use those cards, I don't think until Division 2 it'll really matter. Just the level of competition you've got. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think once you get to Division 2 and 1, you're really hindering yourself, especially as the game goes along. Because once that 99 Tyler Myers comes out, you're not able to use those guys competitively because of how the game is played. But in lower divisions, the game is just end to end still, and I wish I could experience that a little bit more. Not that I'm great, but I'm still in Division 1, so I actually. Like, if I don't use those guys because I'm not as good as you two, like, I really struggle. So, I feel it. And I think that a lot of the guys that are outside of that spot, maybe they don't really understand because they don't feel like they're fine with the smaller players. And I think that, just maybe Mikes will touch on a little bit, like just how important it is to have those giant guys when you get into those higher divisions. Maybe it's just because the game plays differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the skill thing, right? Whenever you get up to those higher divisions, most people are within a certain skill range of each other, so you need every advantage you can get.
Yep.
And that's when the meta is going to matter more, and that's when, like you said, people aren't going north-south the whole time. There's a lot of passes in the neutral zone. There's a lot of puck possession. And I think it's a fact, too. Whenever you look at, like, people that build their teams in Ultimate Team, you're not going to see... I'm not going to use Regs as an example because I think he's the greatest video game player of all time. But the people that place like 2 to 20 in Hut Champs every week, they're not going to use Patrick Kane, right? They're just not. So, like, why would you listen to somebody else that's saying you can use those players whenever the proof is in the pudding, right?
Exactly. And I just want the casual players to understand that because it's not like we're like, those cards are unusable. It's just once you hit a certain point, man, the end-to-end rush, and I kind of miss that gameplay. Like, if you were to go back to Division 10, it'd be boring because you would just walk through everyone. But, like, the end-to-end is, like, so much more fun than, like, what it ends up being now, especially with 22, because 22 I found the most low scoring. And it's funny because when I talk to some people, they don't have that same... Padre, you've played every Hut, basically. Or, sorry, you've played every game. And Hut the last few years because of GWC... Did you experience lower scores this year, or was it roughly the same in what you experienced?
Yeah, I think it was harder to score this year because there wasn't a certain glitch goal, like a goal line shot.
There was none. It was just hockey goals, which is like really frustrating in a video game.
Right, and I think that's like the big thing because usually everyone sees a glitch goal and they're like, all right, it's time to master the glitch goal. I know Kessel will probably touch on it a little bit later with the beta, how every shot in God's name's going in. But another thing I was going to say too, I think, and maybe Kessel, you would agree with this, I would be more inclined to try Goudreau, Kane, like, I don't know, whatever players that I don't normally use, if, like, Hut Champs wasn't the Super Bowl of the week. Meaning, you have to come in and do, like, a guy like me, I don't have time to play a ton of rivals, whatever, so it's like I have to do good in Champs, so I try to make sure, like, I have a good weekend, 18-2, 17-3 at the worst, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. And I feel like I'd be more inclined to do it if there was something else to play that would show me how I did. So, like, when I say that, when I play Rivals, it just is like the bar just goes up after every game. And it just goes up every game. And then the only thing you can see is your player stats. You don't see how you're doing as a team. Like, Hesso, I know you look in your advanced stats after, like, some of the weekends. I know Junior Pens does a lot, and he looks at his hits, his face, everything.
I wish I could doc.
Yeah, and I wish I could see that without having to use an Excel doc to track things. That way I could be like, oh, Patrick Kane, you know what? He's doing great, and my team's winning with this smaller team. I don't know. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. So for anyone that doesn't realize, like, so Padre is someone that is playing Hockey Ultimate Team for the sole reason of GWC. Like, you would not be playing. I mean, you haven't played. You only came over, and I feel like people don't understand how many people came over to Hockey Ultimate Team because of the Game World Championship.
Sure.
Kesso is one of them. So, like, I think that's a good point because Hut Champs is a viable way for the top end players in the world to build their team. You're right. You can't really mess around. You've got to actually, do as best as possible. And I think again that we come back to NHL 24. We might get like a draft champs mode. Like, if that was the case and you could draft a smaller team and it really doesn't matter, you're just playing. And if you lose 2, okay, you just restart, or however it works. I think that's something I never thought about if because all of your games matter so much more on a week basis because you don't have infinite time to play. Like,
is it a lot to ask for? We talked about things being patched in possibly later in the year. Is it a lot to ask maybe by, I don't know, I'm making up something, February, I don't know, like a leaderboard for Rivals, and hopefully knock on wood it happens.
I think anything's a lot to ask this year. They had it was in one of those articles.
Yeah, they confirmed nothing.
No big updates, right? So there's going to be like the typical updates we get that'll patch like
no
glitches
roster
or maybe
sharing
like
kind of updates.
Yeah, nothing like that. The only thing will be crossplay. So I think any addition like that's going to be 24. But 2 things to add onto since we were talking about smaller player, bigger player thing. Not saying you can't use them. It's just you're going to have a harder time, right?
Yeah.
If I'm playing against somebody at equal skill when I'm using a small team, he's using a big team, I'm probably 40% to win.
Yeah.
We use equal big, probably 50-50, right? That's just how it is. You can say like, I don't care about winning. I just want to use my favorite players. That's
That's all.
fine.
That's great.
It's just going to be more difficult to win.
Yeah, in a 1v1 experience, for the most part, if you're playing rivals and not squad battles, winning is what dictates a lot of your fun. If you can lose and have fun, that's, all the power to you. I feel like there's a very...
It's not, I don't think any of us have that.
That is not normal. Yeah,
I don't like that. That's not...
like every once in a while, I'll play, a pro player and have a good game, and that's kind of fun. But for the most part, man, you got fun starts with winning, and then your team that you want to use, right? Like that's, and I think that's just a problem with the high end. Like once you get to a certain skill level in NHL, it is, it's a lot more demanding in that. I think for offline, you get to use, if you're just a squad battler or a hot rush, you can use whoever you want. Really, like for the most part, you can, because I think the Superstar AI is very, very easy compared to other games. Like if you wanted to go play MLB on Legend, good luck. Like you need to be born with that. Like if either you're hitting it or you're not. And then in Madden, it's like if you've got hours to study formations and shit, then okay, maybe. But in NHL, it's pretty simple. Like if you can get to Division 5, you can probably beat Superstar AI like every time. So, but yeah, that was I just wanted to bring that up because. That we talk about like the big fast guys the most, and maybe some players that are in the lower end, they don't really understand that. I wish it was different. And me and Kessel spent, way too many hours trying to come up with a system that is better, and it won't ever be used. But that being said,
maybe this year with that last chance or whatever the hell it's called,
it makes
maybe that
players.
As that superstar ability, maybe that will add like some viability to using smaller players, especially if it's just like 1 or 2 points having it on them. Maybe it will. We'll see.
So we got word in the gameplay trailer about 350 goalie animations being added. I rolled my eyes because I feel like every year they're like, here's 5,000 new goalie animations, when it's like, there's really nothing new. We're still going to score cross-ice one-timers. However, they showed like a 2-on-0, and I was like, bro, this is the stuff. And I think I've learned my lesson this year that gameplay is so subjective. Like, there's like the top end players, they have their complaints and their things that they like about the game, and then, but really for the most part, some people love it, some people don't, and you're never going to create a game where the gameplay is enjoyed by all, because someone has to lose. Like in my opinion, that's why. And this year we talked about it, it's like there is no glitch goals, which I think is a good thing in the sense, but I think glitch goal is defined incorrectly. I think that if you can score a goal that takes elite mechanics of the controller and setup to pull off, that's not a glitch goal. The Geimer one where you literally backhanded it from the trapezoid line off the back of a goalie, that's a glitch goal. That is,
and I heard it's working again, sadly.
That is awful. They will patch
scary.
that. They will get rid of that, because that was only in the game for like a couple weeks, I think. They were pretty quick on that one. That was awful. But what happens is when you have no glitch goals, you have a lot of hockey goals. And while it is a hockey game, if you're talking about playing online and your main focus is winning, right? This is what I struggle with the most, is I would control play, set up a good amount of plays, get robbed and not adjust to it. But there was a lot of just hockey goals. And I feel like people don't realize how much luck is involved in the real sport. And it's a lot of just get pucks to the net. In a video game, you want to have some more control, right? And when you take that away, I think it leads to a worse experience. But again, I have a much different view than everyone else, which is why I will say this all year long. I will never give my gameplay thoughts to the Game Changer program ever again, because it is not. My thoughts and your thoughts and everyone else's thoughts will never line up uniform across the board. So I will never give my thoughts on the gameplay. But it's just like that. This is like what my feelings are of 22. And man, that save though, that scared me, dude.
So Padre, you're the expert goalie on this, because me and Sleeves clearly aren't. What did you watch? You watched the trailer, I'm assuming.
It was basically, yes, and it reminded me of almost the Ryan Miller save in Boston all those years ago, where he's going one way, he goes back the other way, and then he sticks out his paddle at the end and saves it. And I know it wasn't the same exact like setup, but it's so hard to go side to side like that with your edge work as a goalie. To go back that other way and stop. I mean, that guy in the trailer got all of that shot too.
Yeah, I think it was Larkin, bro.
And it was Billy Husso too that robbed him.
Small goalies are the meta now. Like that's it. Like I think
So my bad. I was yeah. I agree.
No,
It's
that was
impossible.
really it. Like I don't understand the point in showing that off because I thought goalies were too good in 22.
I did. I think they were really good.
And I think those shots should go in. Like my issue is that those don't go in the game, and it's just like the random goals that go in.
That's the issue. So like when you've set up a play, and that needs to go in a video game, it like you've outworked your opponent, right? In hockey, that is why we play the sport. Like that's why the sport's played, right? And I think that's always going to be the debate because this year was very, very sim based. It was very sim based. So I agree. So what they did with goaltender specifically now is I can't believe this wasn't a thing. They added in the human goalie animations. So when you go left and right on the right stick as an ESHL goaltender, it makes that push across, and goaltenders never had that. And now the AI goalies have access to all of those, which is going to be pretty crazy. We'll talk about the beta in full in just a little bit, but like the goaltenders now, what I'm seeing is cross ice one timers saved a little bit more. Like they are being stopped more. But man, if you set your shot from basically anywhere and pick your corner, they are going in. And
so there's that, right?
Yeah.
So those cross crease saves are just saved way more. But interceptions are tuned up too.
Yes.
Which doesn't make so like you're going hardcore in that direction, fine. But all these random shots, like you said, they're going. They went in on our build as well, right? So it's not just this. And I just don't get the point. Like if I make a nice play, if I set up a nice play, like I want that to go in 9 out of 10 times. I don't want my wrist shot from the blue line to go in 4 out of 10 times.
Yeah, and again, I think this is the problem when we talk about like this kind of stuff. Is like we talk about from like a high end, like when you're talking about like competitively. And again, if you're someone that's in Division like 3 and below, guys, let us know in the comments like your thoughts. I'm always curious now. I'm way more cognizant. I learned my lesson from this last year. Like I'm way more cognizant of the players that don't play this game, at the highest level because your experience is going to be far different. So I think what you're going to see is a lot more high scoring. And for anyone that wants to debate that there isn't higher scoring, if you have access to your NHL 21 game, you didn't uninstall it out of blind rage, go back and look at your Hut goaltender, and having an 80% save percentage in NHL 21 was like the benchmark. Like that was sick. Having 80% save percentage. Dude, I have Division 1, and I think I'm like 200 and like 125. Like nothing crazy. Like I'm not like one of these guys that has 500 wins and 4 losses like Sitful or something. Like, and my save percentage is 87%. So like I'm not just making this up. Like, and I'm wondering if it's because of the console I play on, because maybe it's different for everyone else's console. But I would love to know your guys' comments. Go and look at your goaltender save percentage. I'm curious because, man, it just seems way higher this year.
Yeah, for sure.
We're
going to see the benchmark in 23 is going to be like 75.
That's it, bro. They're going to, man, do you not see or do you not find, this will get another sidebar, NHL 21, they removed the intercept model. They just straight up turned it off. So for anyone that didn't know, you could force a pass through, and unless your stick, which before stick and physics was even in the game, it was connected to your player model. If that stick was not in the exact right position, it would go through. And what ended up happening was that barely was ever the case. They would never make an animation, move their stick a little bit. It was just not in the game. And we didn't even find that out until like, I did like an interview with Ben Ross, and he was just like, oh, yeah, we turned it off.
Yeah, 22, I think, was either out or it was like...
It was out. 22, they brought it back in. They turned it back on.
No, I'm saying the game was out, I think, whenever you had that.
Oh, yeah, like thing. He just said that it wasn't in the game. And I'm like, that wasn't communicated at all. Like, that would make sense. Like, we would understand that. So, in 21, it's off. And force cross crease meta was like the play. 22, they're like, okay, that was way too hard. Let's turn that way off. But we're going to turn pass assist all the way down to 0. So, now it's like they keep going to crazy extremes. And like, I don't know if you think that's the right way to go about it, Padre, but like, how do you feel about like, all those like drastic changes? Do you think they should find a middle lane or middle way here?
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like you should find a middle ground, especially with a game where it's not. It's such a random. It's hockey, so it's a random game. You can't have it dictate. It can't cater towards the the top, like Kessler says, like 5%, 4%, whatever it is, top players. It needs to be in the middle. And I mean, it doesn't really affect me because I'm still gonna be saucer passing all day backdoor, baby. So it's no
I
big deal.
love-
Me and Kesso and Sleevesy all love the saucer pass.
Dude, you just huck that thing off the rush into the middle. Like, dude,
I mean, is there a goal that feels more rewarding than when you get that sauce backdoor? I mean,
no, because it
literally,
lands
nothing better.
right on the stick like every
So
time. It's so good.
Marinara all day.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Like it just seems like, okay, we removed one skill gap. Let's introduce another one completely,
Right.
but like let's just go all the way to the extreme. So this year they the intercept model should be on. I don't see why they would turn it off again.
For sure.
So this looks like it's going to be like 21 with intercepts, which I love 21's gameplay. But again, I don't know if I'm in the minority on that, but it'll definitely feel a little bit different. Let's talk about the pochecks though. This is going to impact the top end of like the competitive play more than anything, because I saw it in World of Chel in the beta. Man, dude, the speed nerf on those pochecks is wild. And I know that you only played a little bit Padre, but like all those guys that you go up against that just chase you around, they no longer can just wiggle the stick against you. Like I feel like that's
there's no more wiggle. No more wiggle's huge. Like I never understood why that was even a thing. Because you go grab a hockey stick right now, and you're like Adam Banks and Mighty Ducks trying to wiggle that thing around. Like you can't move it around. I mean, it's impossible. Like you'd have to have the lightest stick ever. The way these guys were swinging their sticks around. And I know Kesso and like. I mean, me and you love the big boys like Zdeno Chara, so we would just go back and just swing his stick around and poke everybody with him. But I'm glad it's gone. Anything that's like goofy like that, I'm always happy that it's gone. Like,
dude, when you skate faster with it out, like I kind of understand the concept of that, but like it doesn't make any sense in the game. And they skate straight up when they have it out, so it just looks super dumb. Like it was awful to look at.
Yeah.
Kesso, what about you? What do you think? You think that's going to impact the game a ton?
I think that's the biggest impact because like
This
22,
year.
22, every single player had like the forearm strength of Thor with that stick wiggle. And it was just insane because like even like I just don't get it because they were wiggling the stick and then it would knock the people off, right? And it made no sense like logically. But now that they have that nerf to the speed, right?
You got to be careful when you hit R1.
You have to remember gap control, which nobody knows apparently in the NHL video game, and you have to time it well, right? So I think there's going to be such a huge defensive gap or skill gap in defense that it's going to be pretty fun to see. We're going to see like 10-7 scores. It's going to be early, dude, because of this.
That first month, man, it's going to be ugly.
Yeah. Dude, people are going to have such a tough time. And Padre, you remember the sleeves? You're not. Padre, we used to play like NHL 09, 10. Oh. That was back in the day when there weren't really many tools defensively.
No skills.
And those games were like that, right? So like you had to learn how to play positionally. And just like if you played defense in EASHL back then, it was like if you missed your hit or poke check just like barely, you were screwed. It was a goal. And I think that's what it's going to be like this year.
Remember the old ghost poke back in the day? The old sticky poke?
Oh, dude, I remember those ghost poke. Dude, those are awful, dude. Like, a big fear of mine is like, so everyone talks about like the skill zone, obviously, where everyone just sits in the middle. I feel like after a month of people getting burned for the ones that relied on just holding out the wiggle stick, like the holding out R1, they're going to revert back to just everyone sitting in the middle. And if there is no, like, what do you think the counter to that is? Because like you had a tweet today that said NHL 23 might be the glitchiest game that we've had in like 6 to 7 years, Kesso. And when everyone skill zones and sits in the middle, it's almost needed. Because if you don't have a way to counter that, then what you're going to end up with is tons of time on attack. You have no shots that can get through, and there's no goal that you can kind of get someone to pull them out of position. Because I think everyone's just going to sit in the middle because they don't know where to go positionally. They're just like, I stand right here. It's in the middle of the net. They're eventually going to come here. So give me your thoughts on that. Like, why did you think it's going to be glitchy?
I think it's going to be glitchy, and I think it might be a side effect of those new human goalie animations added to the goalies.
Interesting.
Because they seem awful in World of Chel. They didn't seem that great in the builds we played. So I think if people do turn to the skill zoning, the goalies aren't great. Like they have an increased screen impact, right? We know that. So maybe crashing that and some other stuff like that works better. So they're going to have to pressure. When they pressure, easier to score, right? Easier to score with behind the net. And I don't know about these goalies this year. Like I really don't. Like it has me. I'm not worried because like I excel in that type of game, like that video game.
Much
type
better
thing.
than me too. Yeah, same.
Yeah. So like I'm not worried, but I really feel like it's gonna be like that old Xbox 360 generation of hockey where it's like there are the glitch goals in the game, there's no defense, and it's a free for all.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. Like I would take it. I don't want it to be the same goals over and over and again. But if you had more time and space, like if they're gonna all sit in the middle because they're scared to get out of position, you will have more time and space to an extent until you get into the middle. So that allows for a little bit more creativity. And again, that first month, I won't touch R1 probably. I can't remember what game was it. Was it 20 or 21? Like there was a game where like I think it was probably patched.
I think it was 19 where if you like poked, it was a penalty. Was that it?
Maybe that was it, man. I remember there was a game where you literally could not hit R1, and it was only the first like half of the game, and it might have been 19. I can't remember, but I think it's gonna be a lot like that. So when I played the beta, I was kind of cognizant. I want to try out pocheck, and as long as you time it well, people need to understand the pocheck stat. Yeah, like it works. Like it's still fine.
Dude, there's so many people that are younger. Not that, like I'm sounding like the old angry man that yells at the cloud or whatever. Here. There's so many people that are younger that have been playing with an assisted game for years.
Yeah.
Where if it plays like it does, there's not this crutch that you can rely on to just wiggle your stick down the ice, right? Yeah. Like you have to make smart plays. And I'm really like, if it's like this in the game, I can't wait to see people crying because they make a mistake. And one mistake leads to a goal.
They don't have any discipline. That's the problem. Instant gratification, our society. That's all it is. And you know what's funny too?
I love it.
Well, you know what's funny too? Speaking of like the skill zoning thing, I maybe going forward in future years, and if anybody's listening to EA, I would love, I've been saying this for years, to be able to snipe goalies. Not what I mean by snipe, meaning you beat them on the same side every single time. Like everyone always knows it's either low blocker 1 year or it's high glove another year. I'd love to come down and dance a defenseman and be like, I'm going to snipe him 5-hole here. There's no such thing as a 5-hole goal unless you have a breakaway and you go backhand and slam it 5-hole. And it's a glitch. I mean, it's not a glitch, but you get what I'm saying. It goes in a lot. You have to do it a certain way. There's just no sniping in this game. You know what I mean? There never has been. And it's not like it's a tough game to do it for. I understand that. But I just wish like you go, I'm going to go low blocker. I'm going to go high glove, and pick your spots and see a goalie's weaknesses. Like like he said, the goalie, the movements are different, everything. If you see a goalie drop his glove, then you go high. It's just like real hockey. I don't know. I just wish there was something they'd add to it to create some different variables.
They'd have to add more randomness to the goalies, right? Like maybe even tendencies in certain ones. Yeah, like the stances actually matter because if it was a thing where if it was a thing where you're playing a game and for 2 periods you've been going for the glove side like shot the whole entire time, right? Like 19 shot attempts and you're going for that.
Short side.
Then in the third period you mix it in and you shoot blocker and like it catches them off. Like that'd be great, something like that, right?
Maybe like Terminator stuff though. We're talking about like assisted AI that's slowly machine learning.
No, we're in 2022. Right?
They can't get cross console at launch, bro. We get Terminators as goaltenders. I don't know, man.
But think about this: the Cup final where the Blackhawks and the Bruins played each other. The whole narrative of the Cup final was Corey Crawford can't stop a glove side shot. What if there was some kind of thing? And Kessel, you would love this. Different goalies in Hut where you're like, okay, this guy's, if you use him, you can just pound him blocker side or you can beat him glove side. If there was different variables for like this guy's weaker on the glove, like UC Saros, he's tiny, right? He's super quick side to side. But then Ben Bishop, not playing anymore, just using an example, tall goalie, he's great up high. He doesn't get beat up high. But if you get him moving, you can beat him. There's different strengths and weaknesses. I think it'd be pretty cool.
But you're describing like what the attributes should do, but they don't do it, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Every goalie plays the same.
Speed is the only important stat. Like that's it.
Every goalie plays the exact same in the game. Like everybody has like 90 glove high, right? So they'll just always play the same.
You know what's funny?
They actually have to have attributes.
That's the issue, I think. So like we all play MLB. Me and Padre play a little bit more. And the attributes really matter in MLB. Like you really see it. But more than that, their batting stance and their swing matters.
Yeah.
Like there's guys that have jacked up max power, but their swing seems slow, and majority of people can't hit with them. They have like a noodle bat. It's wild. Then there's guys that have really low power, but you can mash with them. You found, Padre, you showed me. I made a video on this, but you're the one that showed me. There was 4 random skaters in NHL 22 that had custom skating strides, and they made no sense. And it was like Panarin, Eichel, McDavid, and there's one
Nathan McKinnon.
In McKinnon, yes, McKinnon. And it was like they started to do it, and they're like, oh, it's going to take way too long. No way we're doing this. And like they just stopped. And if speed was the same, like uniform, 99, but their stride was a little bit different, maybe McKinnon is a little bit faster right off the rip. You know, maybe
the way they shoot. You know what I mean?
Custom
Matthews
shots, man. Like if they had custom shots, like, and same thing with goaltenders. If you had a goalie that there's no way they could afford this with the time that it would require. If you went in and you took a motion capture guy and you actually just watched each goaltender in a stance and gave them their actual stance, that is where we would actually find differences about goaltenders that we could use. And like, because as it stands right now, it's like whoever's biggest, whoever's fastest. It's the exact same.
We need a batting stance guy like an MLB, the guy that's famous on YouTube and Twitter. That's the thing about baseball. It's such a sport where you can remember like Julio Franco was holding the bat out. Everyone's got their own. Like a duck. It's like one of the unique things in baseball that they have going for them. Kessa, my bad. What were you going to say?
No, I was about to say, does every player, like most players in MLB The Show, have the unique batting stance, right?
Almost all of them. Almost all of them.
Thousands.
Okay, so why can't that, like, I mean, I know but people do shoot differently in the league. Like, people have unique things, so, like, why?
I would think, my guess is it all comes back to, like, the sport. It's much more difficult to create motion capture for a hockey game than any other sport.
Because there's all the animations that branch off.
Because you're not on your feet, you're on skates, you have a stick, right? And then the way you're using your stick in like all three zones of your body, like up high, like and so everything's involved. In baseball, it's really like the way you start your swing and then how fast it comes through, but like it would take a long time to probably.
Don't underestimate the internet, okay? There's a guy out there in the NBA. He'll imitate the way like LeBron like dribbles and dunks, man. and he'll put on the jersey, and he's like social media famous from it now. I guarantee you, there's some kid out there in Saskatchewan, up there and like somewhere in Canada, and he knows how to dance around like Patrick Kane does, because Patrick Kane's got a distinctive stride. They all have different ways of skating.
Didn't they market custom shots like in NHL 20?
Oh yeah. No. 22, they really did.
No. The 1 year was a back of a box feature. Like it was.
Okay.
I want to say it was Matthews' first year because he had his like
the toe drag shot.
No. That was his X Factor. I'm talking about his first year on NHL 20. There was 1 year where it was like 15 of the most popular shots. Like Ovechkin had one.
Yeah.
I don't know, but when you go and look, dude, like I want Danny Heatley, like. We're just way up
you
at the
said
glass.
Danny Heatley. You guys know that meme where he's waiting for the one-timer
in the corner,
and there's no way he could get his shot off.
Oh man, yeah, I would love to see that.
I would love that added to the game, like, because I think that's what makes it different. We just said, like, everyone complains, but it's like, dude, it's whoever's fastest and biggest. It's like, it's not my fault or our fault. Like, that's all that there is. If you took the picture away, that is all that there is. That is all that differentiates Patrick Kane from Zdeno Chara.
If you showed our wives the game, they'd all think it's the same.
Oh yeah, easily, man. Easily, dude. Like it's.
Well, who's that? Okay, it's Patrick Kane. Okay, well, who's that? Oh, it's Zdeno Chara. I don't know the difference.
My wife's always the first person that brings me back down to earth every single time there's a new game, because I'm like always excited. She's always like, well, what? She's always like, well, what's new in the game? I'm like, well, they added some new animations. You can kind of, And then she, I think one of the first couple years we were dating. This is like almost 10 years ago. They added goalie fights to the game. It was like 11 or 12, dude. Right? And she's like, do they still have goalie fights in the game? And I'm like, I don't really know. You don't really see them that much.
Dude, it's so funny because like back then when online was like secondary, the offline stuff, like the All-Star Shootout Challenge and all that, like everyone's like, dude, why isn't that in the game now? It's because no one play, like the amount of the player base that would actually care if they put that in the game is so minuscule, but it sucks because that would be awesome. Like,
Broken glass will be reinvented for the third time, maybe. Hey, throw in the Zamboni challenge. Remember on NHL 2K when you have to hurry up and clean the ice as fast as you could? I could never win that achievement. It took me like 3 months, and I finally did it. I was like, let's go. It was so sweaty.
Dude. All right. So let's talk about our predictions for NHL 23 as we wrap up today's episode. Let's start with the non-game changer. So you've seen, all you basically have, Padre, is the feedback from the community and what you've seen. And you've played the game since the last 20 years. What's your expectations for 23? Will it be Good, the same. Will people hate it quicker? Give me your thoughts and predictions for 23.
I think it'll be similar to 22. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of us, and if you're listening to this, you're all gonna buy it. You're all gonna.
Oh,
play
we all
it.
have an addiction. Yeah,
And,
we don't judge.
And if you're listening to the pod, you're gonna play it. It's gonna be probably pretty similar with some tweaks. I think it's like a big tuner is what I look at it
Yes.
like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna like crap on them about it. Like I get it. COVID threw a wrench in a lot of things. I'm hoping next year, like you guys are saying, you're thinking it's gonna be the best year in a while.
Dude.
And like I don't know. I mean, from what I've seen, I only played one period last year, and I only played one period this year. I don't like to get all worked up over the beginning of the thing because there's always like a tuner or two in the beginning of the year, and then you get a game for like 3 months and you kind of know what it is. So I'm not going to get too worked up over anything right now.
It's funny, before we get Kes, we get your thoughts. Like, man, even talking to some of the developers, they're just like, man, 24 is going to be a banger. Like, you get those vibes. Like, they won't say it that like 23 is like whatever, but it's like, I've had conversations where they're like, God, 24 is going to be awesome. Like, they're just so excited about something that they're going to be able to get in the game. And like, yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be very similar. Keza, what do you think?
I think it's gonna be fun. All right, I'm gonna use the word fun.
You're biased. You're super biased because you're jacked up about creating content.
I know. I think it's gonna be fun because it has the chance to be a complete disaster, right?
Oh,
If
that would be fun.
No. Hear me out. If crossplay doesn't work, it could be awful, right? If there's like desyncs in the game, like looping, whatever, it could be awful. If it works and the games are high scoring, it has a chance just to be fun. You can enjoy it. So I think I'm optimistic, realistically optimistic. So I'm gonna say like a 7 out of 10. Glitchy game, high scoring. I think we'll enjoy it for those reasons.
You just want to see disasters so you can make your memes on Twitter. That's all it's about.
You are the best Twitter follow, by the way. If anyone's not following Kessa Baguni on Twitter, anytime there's a banger issue with 23, you'll get a good pop culture reference.
I really towed the line, and I'm waiting for the day. All right, I put out a meme, and then I go on Discord, and I'm not in the Game Changer program
Dude,
anymore.
Nasher craps on the game more than anyone else.
From like Clappy or something. He's like, yeah, sorry, one of the developers saw one of the memes you put out there, and we just can't have you putting that negative energy out there anymore.
One of my all-time most liked tweets ever was that ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal.
Why was I thinking that the other day? What was it?
Dude, it was like, this is the only, even this ship couldn't stop cross-ice passes in 21, and it had like 1,000 likes. Like, dude, nothing like a good meme about the NHL video game. But
yeah, so what do you think? What are your expectations or predictions?
God, man, they're low. Like, they are. I do not want to be pessimistic in the sense that I'm just angry about the game. This is my job. But I knew going into the year that cross-console would come in. I have said this since cross-console was even a thought a couple years ago, that the year that cross-console comes out will not be the best year. Because we know in the background, Kessel, like how much of their time it takes to get something like that in. Everywhere else takes a hit, and I do not think that the launch of the game, it's going to be fun because you know that in November crossplay is coming. But if we don't, for Hut specifically, and that's what we play the most, right? I am scared that the cycle is going to be the same. And man, if the cycle is the same in terms of Rivals, Squad Battles, Champs, Repeat, for the 4th straight year. Like, there was some mention of Rivals, something new with Rivals, but it sounds a lot like Hut Rush. I don't know, but it was very, very minuscule. It was it was like a sentence. So we'll wait and see for the Hut deep dive. But if that is the same cycle and there's no cross market, 24 needs to hurry up in that.
What if the gameplay is fun though? That's my question.
If it's the same
cycle,
if the gameplay is fun, then it couldn't be any worse for myself. Like I said, I had a really bad experience with 22. I say this a lot. 21 was probably my best game. I was 1 win away from qualifying for GWC, and now I'm a meme. So in 22, I was awful, and that definitely put a damper on like how I played or how my experience of a 22 was. But because it was so random, and I felt like the more times that you dominated the game but didn't win, it happened more than any other game of NHL, where you really felt like you should have won, and you were just waiting for some weird rush and a flick up off of a skate into the net. Like, it happened so much. And but with 23, I think we are going to see a lot more higher scoring. So I'm pessimistic. I think that content, they're going to have to find a really fun way to make content blast. And Hawk and Moose have done a very good job with that. So I will say that there is some hope there. But if the cycle is the same in Hockey Ultimate Team and cross console, dude, odds out of 10, cross console comes out and it doesn't have to be shut down. Like
I would say 6 out of 10 chance.
I would say 8 out of 10. Like I don't see a way that they turn it, they hit the switch, they hit the button, and there is an immediate face-off looping or dashboarding, or it just your system explodes. Like
so that's like best case scenario. Though, what if there could be a chance where it just wipes your hot team and there's no way to recover it or something?
Like it goes in. When they added roster sharing, I think they were legitimately concerned about that because I don't think people realize how impactful rosters are. That if a roster is incorrect, like offline, it can brick your whole game. Like you will get an error immediately because like the rosters aren't working. But you know, I've been the game changer the longest here out of me and Kesso, and I think that every year the optimism slowly dies a little bit. And I think it's my 5th game now, and I hope though because it's my job, right? Because like, selfishly, I want it to be good. I do think gameplay is going to be different than 22, which I'm excited about, but we'll have to wait and see. Guys, that is going to do it for episode 42, our first Hut podcast with Padre on board. We are going to record our Central Division preview on our real life hockey podcast version of Coffee and Chel. That we've got to figure out a way to describe that. That isn't. We need some branding. We need to have a brand meeting, I think, here. We'll figure it out.
We need to bring in a consultant.
Yeah, we need to figure it out. But guys, let us know your thoughts on 23, and if you have any disagreements with us in the comments, we love to just argue with people on the internet. So make sure that you let us know where we're wrong or where we're right, because maybe that is the case. And make sure you follow us on Twitter. All the Twitters are down below. And anything else, guys?
It was fun. It reminded me of our old Discords, the 3 of us during the work
I actually did
days.
enjoy it. I did enjoy it. So, all right, guys, we will see you next episode for the NHL Central Division preview. Have a good one.